Bubala. The question you have asked is this: what exactly is the mind? It appears to me that you have lost your mind completely. Because who really wants to understand the mind and other person's mind and his own mind? Nobody wants. Actually, very few people try to look into this phenomenon called mind. You can call it a mystery or phenomenon or the entity which cannot be perceived, defined. Many people have tried to define it to some extent, yet it remained indefinable. I too have searched for the right answer, for the right description in the books. I have heard few people talking about it. I also have heard great people talking about it through their discourses. No answer satisfy you. That is the truth. So the question you have asked me have 3 layers. The first layer is, what exactly is mind? The second layer is how to understand the mind, and third layer is how to get rid of the mind. Now for me it is quite difficult, or I say it's quite inappropriate to talk about these 3 aspects of the mind at one go. Today we just stick to the first layer of the onion. What exactly is the mind? So through an analogy, I'll make you understand what exactly is it. You need to pay little attention, because whatsoever I am saying, you already know about it. But now we are going little deeper into the crux of that understanding which you already have. It's like everyone knows that what car is, but mechanic knows little more about the car. He spent little more time with the car and the mechanism and the functionality and the noise it creates. So he can actually give little more reasonable detailing no one else can. In the same way, we all know what mind is to some extent, but I am trying to go a little deeper into it so that it may help you to understand your own mind. So with the help of your understanding, the understanding which I am giving it to you right now, it is compatible, it actually complements to your understanding. Now, analogy is this. Just imagine a place where you live. Actually, you don't have to imagine. Just look around the place you live. So the room has boundaries. When a person says that this is my house, he is actually simply defining a boundary. Whether it is a palace or a mansion or an organization, a government building or your room or a hut. It's simply defining the boundary. And as far as mind is concerned, it too has a boundary, but it is invisible. And when we think of a house, a boundary, we also think of the object which exists in the boundary, in the house. Now, you have hundreds of objects filled and sit in their own right places. Thousands of objects. Fan is there, computer is there, air cooler is there, fridge, broomstick, footwear, mats, beds, books, awards, certificates, deities, and soaps, and few decorative items, few special gifts from relatives. So many things, and grocery. Everything exists. Everything is there in your house. So say you have 100 objects in your house, and you claim that they all are your own. You have to, because someone does something to that object, you will get offended, because there is an inside agreement that between this object and you there is an invisible connection. That connection is mine. Hence, so many I's. Every object is linked with this I. It becomes a bigger I, and that implies your identity. These all are mine. This is my house. So now you have 100 objects, because we have to understand through an analogy. So I'm just confining a number so that it is easy for you to proceed further. You have 100 objects in your house. So all objects are not the same. That is the first step everyone has to understand. And the moment you buy an object, you come to a conclusion this is yours. Immediately mind clicks a picture of that particular object and creates an image which is equivalent with the object. Because whenever you look at the object, immediately the image in the mind surfaces. Actually, the image in the mind and the object has to be face to face. Then only you recognize the physical object which is in front of you. So you have 100 objects. It simply means you have 100 images clicked your mind camera and preserved in your memory, which is your house, the mind. So now the first understanding is you have 100 objects, physical, and you have 100 images, psychological. And the house, the room, the space which these 100 objects exist is your house or your place, your abode. In the same way, those 100 objects transformed into images which exist in your mind is in the space that is your mind. So both are actually spaces. This house is visible and mind is invisible. That is the only relative difference as far as the first step is concerned. Let's go step by step. The second thing is, every object is not the same. There is no is equal to between objects. In what way? Objects are defined through their costs, through their quality, through their glorification, through their dignity and through their size and many other ways. Now in those three objects, I am picking three objects to make you understand more clearly. The first one is the broomstick, and the second one is a certificate, PhD certificate, and third one is deity, a god. It may be photograph or an idol or a sculpture. I am not going to that. Now, in the same way, the images, those thoughts which exist in the space, which we call mind, are not equal. There is no is equal to between all these thoughts. Now, I am also picking these three images from the mind: broomstick, certificate, and deity. So forget all about other objects, so that we understand the difference between these. So now, you cannot deal with these three objects in the same manner. You take care of the certificate, you may not clean it every day. The way you clean the deity every day. You feel proud about the certificate, but you may not feel proud about the God. You respect it. There is a devotion angle. And as far as broomstick is concerned, neither there is caring nor there is devotion. You don't really care. And the value is also different. The certificate is just a piece of paper, but it worth millions. And the deity may be matter of 5 rupees, but you put the deity on the top. And even you think, and you also say the other person, you expect the same thing from the other, that they should respect the deity. And as far as broomstick is concerned, it may be 1,000 rupees broomstick, but still it is a broomstick. The same thing happens in the mind. Because whatsoever the philosophy you associate with the object, the same philosophy you attribute to the image which you keep in the mind. Now, what is the problem? Till this point, there is no problem. Everyone has objects in their house, and everyone click the pictures with their mind, and they keep in their mind those images which we ordinarily call thoughts. Now, there is a differentiation between these three. The way you look at the certificate, the way you look at the deity, the way you look at the broomstick are totally different thing. For suppose someone stolen the broomstick. Now you are searching for the broomstick, and the mental image actually getting fluctuated, and it wants to see the real broomstick, because every time you want to use an object, the mental image actually always face to face with the real object. The reality is the object which you are holding is actually thought, and the thought actually is a material. The real broomstick you may lost, but the mental image creates disturbance in you. Now you have to get that mental image settled. Now you immediately go to a shop and buy another broomstick. Immediately the earlier broomstick color and the size and the cost will be replaced with this broomstick. You don't really pay much attention which is the best, because the functionality of the broomstick is minimal. But just imagine, suddenly you came home and there is no certificate. Someone has stolen it. Now your reaction may not be the similar the way you responded when you lost the broomstick. Now the mental image and the philosophy attributed to the mental image is so profound and which has so much importance, then the mental image has to see your certificate immediately, otherwise the disturbance gets increased. And that disturbance makes the body run, makes the body shiver, makes the body scold, makes the body cry, and it does million stupid things. Then you run to, and immediately you get a couple of ideas to meet somebody and meet the elderly person, meet the right person, go to a police station and filing a complaint and million things. And you also know that how I can retrieve my certificate. If for suppose if I lose it, is there any other way? So all these things will take place because you have given so much value to the certificate. That is, you have given. And as far as DT concerned, it is not about the cost, but it is about your feelings. Every day you get up, you take bath and you look at the deity and you feel serene within. And you have tremendous reverence towards that particular idol. And if something really happens to the deity, if someone does anything wrong, because you don't do anything, and if you lose deity, you don't really get disturbed the way you got disturbed when you lose the certificate. Here your approach will be simple. You just go to a pujar, this is what happened, and that will be replaced with another. The same devotion will continue, and the mental image will be replaced by the new idol, but the same idol, the same God. So this is the mind. So I have explained only 3, but in your mind, now we have only taken into account the object which exists in the house. But your son may be living in America, so he is also exists in your room, not physically, but as a thought. The sun living in a campus, that also exists in your mind. If your son has, and every object will be attributed to the appropriate philosophy which actually you desire. It is you actually create the philosophy. It is you give value to something. Actually, if you ask me, either all objects have same value or no object has any value. We will come to that later. You are living in a country. The India, the flag, exists in your mind as thoughts. If you are following a guru, he also exists like a thought. Everything needs an image. India doesn't have any image, so you remember the flag. You click a picture of flag, and that actually represents the whole India. But it is very rarely. Have you ever clicked a picture of, just close your eyes and think of a tree which you have created a mental image, a specific tree? No one does. Because there are plenty of trees available. Since you don't name the tree, since you don't own the tree, you don't really care to click an image. You sit under a tree, you play around the tree, but you don't really click the picture of the tree because there are priorities. For example, in our constitution, in our tradition, if there is any diktat, something like this, everyone has to own a tree and he has to take care of the tree the way he takes care of a kid, then yes, now the present society definitely will click a picture of the particular tree which he is taking care of, and immediately the mental image is created, and this mental image always correlates with the tree which exists outside. And if someone does something to it, immediately there is a reaction because the mental image gets disturbed. Now summing up, the way you have a house, you have a mind. House is nothing but the house just defines the boundary, which contains couple of objects of different values, sizes, this and that. In the same way, in the mind, whatsoever you think, whether it is object or a person or a thought of yours, immediately mind clicks a picture or imagery and converts that into a thought. And the value you give to an object, that becomes philosophy, which you will attribute to the thought, which exists in the mind. And that philosophy should never be disturbed. That is the whole point. And the sum total of objects, you say these are mine, and the sum total of those thoughts is I. Since house has a boundary and has objects, mind has thoughts and ideas, images, this and that, but it has no boundary. The content which exists in an invisible boundary, it has a boundary but you cannot see it. Now I'll conclude by giving another analogy. Now you are staying in that house, broomstick is there, certificate is there, and deity is there. As far as deity is concerned, all have emotion and feeling and devotion. But as far as certificate is concerned, you have tremendous proud. You have certain respect for it. No one has. And the broomstick is concerned, no one gives value to it. Understand the difference. And the same house, a small kid exists. For him, a deity and the certificate and the broomstick all are one. Because you have not philosophized those objects to that boy. Still he is a 3-year-old boy. So you think that a day will come, he will know what it is. What he is exactly he is going to know. The philosophy which we attribute to the objects. So now, every thought which exists in your mind should also exist outside in the world. There is nothing which exists in the mind and which does not exist in the external world is a myth. Hence, the world which you have created externally, the same world exists in your mind. You are just standing in the middle of these two worlds, external and internal. The real physical house and the psychological realm, which contains all these images, ideas, philosophies. And the last word is this: the world, the object which you hold, the cup which you hold in your hand, is actually the thought. The image which you click through your mind and preserves in that space, in the mind, is actually real object. Many godmen said, many gurus said, and many doctrines said that you have to get rid of this world. This is Maya. No. You use the cup. Don't click the image of the cup and preserve in your mind. Don't attribute any philosophy. First, don't create the philosophy and don't attribute that philosophy to the mental image. Then you understand the mind then you understand the life, then you understand the true meaning of liberation. So Bubala, next talk will proceed further. We'll try to understand what exactly is the mind. Now I have just given a simple explanation with an analogy. It is the first step. Just go home, count the objects exist in your house. Those many thoughts exist in your mind. And just pick up one object, maybe cell phone. Immediately the mental image has to face the real object which exists in the external world. Realize this aspect first. When you realize this, when we proceed further, a great man said, the mind is invisible body and the body is visible mind. And I am saying, that stop clicking pictures. Then experience the real space which exists, the mind. Amazing things will happen from then. Raso Kanth'Risa.